Good afternoon, and thank you for joining our briefing on the City of Philadelphia's response to gun violence. This briefing is for press only. If you are not a member of the press, please log out and watch today's live stream on the City of Philadelphia's Facebook page, or tune in to 900 AM or 96.1 FM WURD. We will begin our briefing with remarks from Mayor Kenny. Mayor, you have the floor.
Thanks, Kevin, and good afternoon, everyone. There are several updates we'll be sharing during today's briefing related to the community safety. First, I want to acknowledge several heartbreaking incidents recently, including the horrific shooting of 4 people in the Brewerytown section of the city the other evening. In addition, this past weekend, a shooting in Kensington cut the lives of 2 men short. This senseless violence must end, and we need your help to do it. We continue to urge people who have information about crimes to report it through our anonymous tip line. Call or text at 215-686-TIPS. That's 215-686-8477. There is a $20,000 reward for information that leads to an arrest and conviction for all homicide cases. In 2021, we have seen unprecedented levels of shooting and homicides, and this is part of a disturbing trend nationwide. But I want to be clear, the city will continue to act with urgency to reduce violence and to save lives. As we near the end of a difficult year, I want to acknowledge the hundreds of families that are mourning the loss of loved ones, which we know is especially devastating during this season. There are resources available if you need help. Go to dbhids.org/boost to get resources for dealing with trauma and loss. You can also go to healthymindsphilly.org. That's healthymindsphilly.org for free mental health resources and supports. The city also offers counseling and supports which can be accessed by calling 888-545-2600. Interpretation services are also available. It's 888-545-2600. Also today, we'll be sharing the latest updates on the 4th and final round of the city's Anti-Violence Community Expansion Grant Program. With today's announcement of an additional 18 grantees, we've now distributed $13.5 million to a total of 31 local organizations doing anti-violence work on the ground. When we launched the Anti-Violence Community Expansion Grant Program in partnership with City Council earlier this summer, the goal was to do something bold and different to meet the urgency of this crisis. Get funding to community organizations doing anti-violence work on the ground in our neighborhoods quickly and efficiently. This funding, 31 organizations will now have enhanced resources to develop and implement innovative solutions that can help address the city's gun violence crisis. I want to thank all the community organizations that took the time to apply and those who have committed to being part of the solution. For more details, I'll turn it over to Eric Atwood, Senior Director, Office of Policy and Strategic Initiatives for the Criminal Justice and Public Safety. Erica?
Thank you, Mayor Kenny. Just to reiterate, this response to the community expansion grants have been far and wide. The investment of love and passion that we all have for our neighborhoods has been tremendously encouraging. And again, I want to thank everyone who engaged in this process. The Community Expansion Grant Program, we believe, will not only address the issue of gun violence with much needed resources for community-based organizations that can in real time interrupt the cycle of violence, we are also setting an example for a pathway to equitable funding for the philanthropic community across the region, diversifying the field of organizations that receive funding from structured grant programs. In partnership with City Council, a diverse pool of organizations that are focused on bringing positive programming to Philadelphians most vulnerable to gun violence in the form of mentorship, safe havens, trauma supports, and restorative justice have been selected as grantees for the Community Expansion Grant. Just a few examples of these organizations are Man Up PHL, which helps men find alternatives to violence by connecting mentees to positive influences and needed resources. Somerset Community Center and Lighthouse Sports Complex will enhance its space to provide a safe space for families and provide accessible, organized sports to teach commitment to responsibility, grit, and teamwork. And Unity and Community, located in South Philadelphia, will expand its Carpentry Academy to provide training and apprenticeship programs that deter its participants from engaging in gun violence by providing safe haven mentorship, counseling, and job skills training. These are just 3 examples of the amazing work being done by and for community members across the city. The full list can be found on our website and in our press release. In addition to direct funding of the 31 organizations, we will be supporting their growth and sustainability with asset-based technical assistance, supporting an evaluation process of the grant program, and providing a framework for evaluation for their efforts. That is just kind of it in a nutshell, and I'm happy to answer any questions at the conclusion of our presentations. And with that, I will hand it over to Commissioner Outlaw.
Thank you, Erica. Good afternoon, everyone. At a press conference that took place 2 weeks ago, we were discussing the importance of unity and collaboration as the city approaches 500 homicide. As you know, we've sadly surpassed that milestone. Since November 26th, there have been an additional 24 lives lost in our city. I cannot understate the damage that this loss has inflicted on the community and our officers, quite frankly. As it relates to our young people specifically, just this year, we've lost 59 young lives, 18 and under, to homicide. These are 59 children whose lives were taken away before their lives even began. As a law enforcement agency, we are charged with ensuring that our streets are safe. And as you will hear a little later, from Deputy Commissioner Ben Nash, who's our Deputy Commissioner of Investigations, our homicide unit has arrested over 20 individuals wanted for homicide over the last 3 weeks. Let's be clear, our detectives are working around the clock to bring these dangerous offenders to justice. And I cannot commend them enough for their hard work in these unprecedented times. The PPD is not just taking a reactionary approach to policing. Finding ways to bring the PPD and the community closer is essential to improving police-community relations. One way that we've improved upon this is by putting an emphasis on connecting families, children, and the community through the police department. Since we know that youth need a place to be independent and where they can express themselves safely, the decision was made some time ago to expand the Community Relations Bureau. Specific to youth programming, we have several activities that youth can become involved in through the PPD, including our Police Explorers program, PAL, our Youth Police Camp, and our Youth Advisory Commission. I encourage anyone who's interested in any of these services to please visit our website at www.phillypolice.com for more information. Community engagement and inclusion is a crucial component to successful community policing, and the importance of engaging with our youth cannot be understated. About a month ago, I had the wonderful opportunity of having an introductory meeting with the PPD Youth Advisory Commission, or the YAC. The YAC is a group of young people who come together to discuss public safety and what they believe should be doing or should be done to improve their interactions with the public, our interactions with the public. If anyone that you know or you is interested in joining the Youth Advisory Commission, please visit our website at phillypolice.com and go to the Program and Services tab. From there, scroll down to the Youth Advisory Commission interest form and fill it out. That program is open to youth from ages 14 to 18 who are interested in creating positive changes in our community. The formation of the YAC was just the beginning. In addition to that, the Philadelphia Police Department is pleased to announce that we're beginning our procedurally just youth engagement program that will work in support of the YAC. Our department acknowledges and embraces the idea that our engagement with the community should be guided by the principles of procedural justice. Procedurally just behavior is based on 4 central tenets. The first being respect, treating people with dignity and respect. The second being voice, giving individuals voice during encounters. 3, being neutral and transparent in decision-making, so neutrality. And then lastly, conveying trustworthy motives, trust. Supporting the newly developed PPD YAC, this project will strategically engage the youth of Philadelphia to assess current youth engagement to ensure there's external procedural justice. In the field of policing, external procedural justice refers to the way in which officers apply these principles when interacting with members of the public. Research has shown that external procedural justice is critical for increasing the public's trust in their police departments. The project will last 6 months and will be carried out by a Lawful Truth Enterprises LLC. The principal partner of this company is Andrea Lawful Sanders. Ms. Lawful Sanders has spent over 30 years providing education on implicit bias, advocacy, consulting, and communications. Her determined efforts have refined the lives and work of countless individuals, organizations, and corporations. We look forward to this program helping us maximize the work that is accomplished with our YAC. And finally, before I turn this over to Deputy Commissioner Dales, I'd like to point out that this last Friday, December 3rd, the police department graduated the largest group of police communications dispatchers in our 40 years that the PCD program has been running. We hope that this significant influx of new PCDs will help alleviate some of the issues that we've been experiencing with 911 wait times. I want to again thank these dispatchers that have answered the call to help in their city in our greatest time of need. The police department is thankful to have them, and we wish them a long and successful career. Here now to speak about what we're seeing in our pinpoint grids throughout the city is Deputy Commissioner Joel Dales, Deputy Commissioner of Patrol Operations. After DC Dales will be Deputy Commissioner Ben Dash, Deputy Commissioner of Investigations, who will provide details on several investigations that we wish to highlight. DC Dales.
Thank you, Commissioner. Waiting for the slides. Can you make it larger? Okay, you can keep it like that. Okay. So I will start with the citywide homicide and shooting victim stats. Looking at the top of the chart year to date as of December 5th of this year, Philadelphia had 521 homicides and 2,161 shooting victims. In comparison to last year, homicides are up 13%, 521 this year versus 462 last year. And shooting victims are up 3%, 2,161 this year versus 2,100 last year. And looking at the bottom left of the chart, it shows the motives for the homicides remain the same, the top three, arguments, drugs, and domestic. And as you can see, we are up 106% in domestic, which we're now at 37 this year. The highest since within the past 3 years was 25 back in 2019. So as you can see, we surpassed that. We're now at 37. Next slide, please. Okay, this slide shows the weekly comparison from 11/29 to December 5th. We had 15 homicides and 40 shooting victims, which the shooting victims include homicides and multiple shooting victims. So in reference to the multiple shooting victims, we had 1 triple and 6 double shootings. And looking at the bottom column, it shows 32 shooting occurrences for the week. So as of October the 18th, we are averaging 34 shootings a week, short shooting occurrences a week. Next slide, please. Okay, this slide shows the comparison between citywide homicides and homicides that occurred in our pinpoint grids. If you look at the top chart, it shows citywide homicides are up 13%. And looking at the bottom chart, it shows homicides in the pinpoint grids at 0. So we were dead even in comparison to last year at 204 this year versus 204 last year. Next slide, please. Okay, this slide shows the comparison between citywide shooting victims and shooting victims in the pinpoint grids. So citywide shooting victims are up 3% and the pinpoint grids are down 16%. Next slide, please. So looking at this slide, we're taking a look at a 6-week comparison. And the reason I want to show a little snapshot of this is let you know where we are currently within the past 6 weeks. So looking at the top of the chart, it shows citywide homicides within the past 5 weeks are fluctuating. You can see that. However, we are seeing a steady decline in citywide shooting victims from October 25th to December 5th. So as you can see, 6% within the week of October 25th to the 31st, Then we were flat at 5% for 3 weeks. Then we went down 4%. Now this week, we're currently at 3%. Green is good, red is bad. So looking at the pinpoint stats at the bottom of the chart is showing homicides are also fluctuating in our pinpoint grids as well. However, this week we are at 0%. So again, it's going up and down reference to homicides within our pinpoint grids. Looking at the shooting victims, again, we're showing a constant percentage of 16 or higher within the past few weeks. So that has been constant. Next slide, please. This slide shows the year in total roof arrests for 2017 through 2020, and the total roof arrests year to date as of this year from January 1st to December 5th. In 2020, we reached an all-time high for roof arrests, which totaled 2,324. And so far this year, we have made 2,413 roof arrests. I would like to point out that this time last year, we had 2,096 roof arrests, which is a 15% increase when compared to the year-to-date totals, which is 2,413. Next slide, please. As of December 6th of this year, we now are at 5,570 crime guns that we recovered in our city. A crime gun is any gun recovered by the police as part of a criminal investigation. And I want to make note that this number does not include guns from buybacks or turn-ins. However, so far this year, I will say that as a result of these turn-ins, over 700 firearms were turned in at these events. So it goes to show that there are a lot of guns on our streets. Next slide, please. In 2020, we recovered, where are we? We had 537. We are now at 537 probably made firearms, also known as ghost guns, which we recovered this year. If you look at last year, the year in total was 250. That's at the end of the year, 250. So we surpassed that at 537. So with that, I will now pass it over to Deputy Commissioner Ben Nash, who is the Deputy Commissioner of Investigations, and he will speak about cases we wish to highlight.
Thank you, Joel. Good afternoon, everyone. Today I'm going to be talking and providing updates on numerous arrests of homicide suspects. It's actually going to be a fairly lengthy discussion. And since my last update on November the 11th, police have arrested 23 individuals who were wanted for committing homicides. All of the cases are from 2021, and I'm going to briefly highlight each of the recent arrests, starting with the homicides that occurred earlier in the year and working our way up to the present. Our homicide detectives have been working tirelessly to identify the suspects responsible for these murders and bring closure to the victims' families. Their hard work should be praised, and we are thankful for their dedication to our great city. Please show the first slide, the arrest of Joshua Johnson. Thank you. And first person up is 21-year-old Joshua Johnson. On March 24th, the victim was 32 years old. His name was Joseph Lee. He was found suffering multiple gunshot wounds in the 2100 block of East Allegheny Avenue. We obtained an arrest warrant for Mr. Johnson on May 1st, and on December the 2nd, Joshua Johnson was arrested and charged with murder and related offenses. Please go to the next slide for Yasim Miles. Yasim Miles, he's 16 years old. On May 25th, we had a 15-year-old victim, Kanye Pittman. He was shot and killed on the 2500 block of North Sydenham Street. I had earlier spoken about this case in a previous press conference regarding the arrest of Tyree Carter for the homicide. Yasim Miles was identified as an accomplice, and a warrant for his arrest was obtained on October the 15th. Mr. Miles was arrested on November the 18th, and he was charged with murder, conspiracy, and related offenses. Okay, next up on the screen is Jihad Young, as you see. This is 22-year-old Jihad Young. On June 28th, the victim, Irene Henderson, a 21-year-old female, was shot on the 200 block of East Cambria Street. The co-conspirator on this case, Zahara Green, was previously arrested on August 9th for the homicide. Through further investigation, Jihad Young was identified as a shooter. And on November the 12th, an arrest warrant was obtained. And on November the 23rd, Mr. Young was arrested and charged with murder, conspiracy, and related offenses. Next is 43-year-old Tyree Carter. On July 1st, The victims, Jameer Harris, who was 26, and Tariq Lee, who was 30, were found deceased inside of a vehicle on the 4400 block of Hedge Street. This got a fair amount of press coverage, I should say. They were found inside of a vehicle, and it was very disturbing. On September the 23rd, an arrest warrant was obtained for Tyree Carter, and on November the 16th, Mr. Cartwright was arrested and charged with this brutal double homicide and related offenses. Next is 30-year-old George Scott. On July the 10th, victim was 33 years old. His name is Daniel Hamilton. He was found suffering from multiple gunshot wounds on the 1800 block of West Oxford Street. On November the 11th, George Scott was arrested and he was charged with murder and related offenses. Next, the next case received a lot of media attention. Victims were returning home from Boys Latin High School when they were gunned down in the middle of the day. It happened on July 21st, and the victims were 17-year-old Kaylin Jihad Johnson and 18-year-old Tommy Frazier. They were shot on the 200 block of South 56th Street in Southwest Philadelphia. A third shooting victim who survived was taken to the hospital, and it took a little while, but we obtained an arrest warrant on November the 26th, and on November the 29th, 19-year-old Rashad Williams, who you see on the screen, was arrested and charged with murder, attempted murder, conspiracy, and related offenses. Next is Nadira Shaw on August the 28th. The victim was a 56-year-old male named Brian Mitchell. He was shot in the abdomen in the area of the 1700 block of Blavis Street. And on September the 4th, the victim succumbed to his injuries. The shooter responsible for this homicide was identified as Tyree Simmons. Mr. Simmons was arrested on September the 12th, and further investigation revealed the woman you see on the screen, Nadira Shaw, is a co-conspirator. And on September the 24th, we obtained an arrest warrant for her. And on November the 30th, Nadira Shaw was arrested and charged with murder, robbery, conspiracy, and related offenses. Next is 28-year-old Rashad Williams. On September the 18th, victim, 30-year-old Salim Pointer, was found shot multiple times on the 2500 block of West Montgomery Avenue. An arrest warrant was obtained on October the 20th, and on December the 5th, Rashad Williams was arrested and charged with murder, conspiracy, and related offenses. This case had previously been cleared with the arrest of Williams's co-conspirator, Tyrone Mitchell, on October the 24th. Now on the screen is a case being highlighted where we had multiple shooting victims. And this case received significant attention when it occurred in September. On September the 20th, 26-year-old victim was found suffering multiple gunshot wounds to the chest on the 1300 block of West Chew Avenue. An additional 5 victims were injured during the shooting. Detectives worked tirelessly to identify the suspects responsible. With the help of the public and additional evidence, detectives were able to determine that Vanessa Singletary Selby, who you see on the screen, orchestrated this homicide while commissioning others to do the actual shooting for her. An arrest warrant for Vanessa Singletary Selby was obtained on November the 12th. Our detectives worked with our federal partners in the FBI Violent Crimes Task Force in order to locate Miss Singletary Selby. And on December 3rd, members of the FBI Charlotte Violent Crimes Task Force, along with the assistance of local law enforcement in North Carolina, arrested Vanessa Singletary Selby in North Carolina. She's going to be held awaiting extradition to Philadelphia to face charges of murder, conspiracy, and related offenses. Next is a photo of Michael Hamilton. And on September 25th, 30-year-old victim Roynell Houston found shot on the 3000 block of Kensington Avenue. An arrest warrant was obtained on November 30th, and Michael Hamilton was arrested December 1st and charged with murder and related offenses. Next on the screen is Luis Castillo. On November the 6th, victim Joshua Soto was found shot on the 1800 block of Cornwall Street. A second shooting victim survived, was taken to the hospital, and on November 10th, an arrest warrant was obtained for Luis Castillo. He was arrested the following day and charged with murder and attempt to commit murder, robbery, and related offenses. This case had previously been cleared on November the 8th with the arrest of another male named Anthony Sherman for that shooting. So this is the second arrest for that case. The next case we should have a photo of Sinif Blackwell and Jameer Martin. And this is also a case that received a lot of attention back in November. On November the 16th, 18-year-old Amir Jones was found suffering from a gunshot wound to the chest on the 1700 block of Cecil B. Moore Avenue, just a couple of blocks away from Temple's campus. Homicide detectives gathered video from the area of the incident and collaborated with our Central Detective Division detectives who were investigating robberies that had occurred previously in the area. The suspects involved in the robberies matched the description of the suspects involved in the homicide of Amir Jones. Our detectives developed persons of interest through diligent investigation, identified Sinif Blackwell and Jameer Martin as suspects. Mr. Blackwell was arrested on November the 27th, and he was charged with murder and multiple counts of robbery and conspiracy. And subsequently, Mr. Martin, Jameer Martin, was arrested on December the 3rd, and he was charged with murder, conspiracy, robbery, and related offenses. Next would be Robert Giles. This was also an incident that obtained a lot of media coverage, and it was the homicide on the 5800 block of Old York Road, where 67-year-old Arunal Mittal was shot during a robbery. Homicide investigators worked around the clock and identified Mr. Robert Giles. And on November the 17th, we obtained an arrest warrant. And on November the 18th, he was arrested and charged with homicide, robbery, and related offenses. And this is the photo of 20-year-old Mikel Clement. And on November the 17th, victim Rasul Quattlebaum was found suffering multiple gunshot wounds in the 5600 block of Market Street. And on November the 21st, Mr. Clement was arrested and charged with murder and related offenses. Next is Donovan Crawford. On November the 19th, victim Saikia Patton, a 24-year-old female, found suffering from multiple gunshot wounds in the 4000 block of Ogden Street. An arrest warrant was obtained for Mr. Crawford. He was arrested on November the 22nd, charged with murder and related offenses. Next is photos of, this is 63-year-old Jeffrey Craddock, also known as Lamore Thompson. And on November the 24th, victim Eloise Harmon, who was 55 years old, she was found shot multiple times on the 2200 block of South 7th Street. An arrest warrant was obtained on November 25th. And on November 26th, Mr. Craddock was arrested, charged with murder and related offenses. Now on the screen now is 20-year-old Cayenne Robinson. On November 27th, victim 51-year-old Michael Seawright was shot on the 1000 block of Brown Street. And on December the 6th, Cayenne Robinson was arrested and charged with murder, conspiracy, and related offenses. Next, a photo of Latif Williams. We spoke about this extensively. This is 17-year-old Latif Williams. And on November the 28th, 21-year-old victim who was a Temple student, Samuel Collington, found shot on the 2200 block of Park Avenue after returning from Thanksgiving break. Our detectives worked around the clock to identify the individual. And on November 30th, we obtained a warrant. And on December the 1st, Latif Williams was arrested, charged with murder, robbery, and related offenses. And the tragic murder of 14-year-old Samir Jefferson, which was publicized recently. On November the 29th, young Samir Jefferson was gunned down on the 100 block of West Wyoming Avenue. He was shot multiple times. Detectives retrieved video surveillance, captured the brutal murder. Were able to identify suspects, two of them being the male seen on your screen. That's 20-year-old Quadir Johnson and 21-year-old Khair Garnett. Both Quadir Johnson and Khair Garnett were arrested on December the 1st. They were charged with murder, conspiracy, and related offenses. On the next slide, we have the wanted pictures of two additional individuals we've obtained warrants to arrest for this same homicide. These two males, one of them is 23-year-old Jaleel Williams and 20-year-old Hanif Robertson. They've been identified as additional suspects involved in the homicide of Samir Jefferson. They are wanted. Anyone with information about the suspect's whereabouts, they're urged to contact our homicide unit at 686-3334 or call our tip line 686-TIPS or 686-8477. And nearing the end, We now have on the screen 23-year-old Khalil Bell. On November 29th, 25-year-old victim David Nelson was shot multiple times in the 3700 block of North 15th Street. A second victim survived, was located at the hospital. We obtained an arrest warrant on December the 9th. And just this morning, homicide detectives, along with our SWAT unit, arrested Mr. Bell. We also recovered a 9mm ghost gun during that arrest. Mr. Bell is going to be charged with murder, attempt to commit murder, and conspiracy and related offenses. And finally, also, I'm pleased to announce detectives made an arrest for the double homicide that occurred just over this weekend on December the 4th on the 2900 block of North Orkney Street. The decedents were 33-year-old Jonathan Castellano and 43-year-old Sandra Ortiz. They were shot and killed on Saturday. Detectives worked quickly, established that the suspect was operating a black Hyundai Sonata, and we obtained a license plate on the vehicle, put out a citywide alert, and put it into the national database, NCIC. And on December the 6th, Pennsylvania State Police notified our homicide detectives. They located the vehicle unattended in Ben Salem at a hotel. Homicide detectives had the vehicle towed for processing, and through video surveillance with other evidence, we identified Eliezer Calazo as the suspect just yesterday, and he was charged with 2 counts of murder and related offenses. Homicide detectives collaborated with the state police, as I indicated, and also Ben Salem police. This enabled detectives to bring the case to a close very quickly. We're grateful for all the help we received from our law enforcement partners. And that's all I had. Sorry for being long-winded. With that, I'll turn it back over to the mayor's office.
Thank you. And now we will move to Q&A for members of the press. Because of limited time, only one representative from each media outlet is permitted to ask questions today. Reporters are asked to limit their questions to 2 or fewer for their first round. And today we are limiting topics in the first round of questions related to specifically to today's update and the presentations. And if there is time for a second round after, we will open it up for additional questions. Armando is also available for Spanish interpretation as needed. But because he has a hard stop early today, we will be prioritizing Spanish-speaking media questions first. So with that, I am going to go to Yaima Crespo of Telemundo.
Hola, muchas gracias. Mi pregunta es para Armando, o la comisionada de policía o para el alcalde sobre el robo de auto que ocurrió hoy en Germantown y en qué estado se encuentra la niña. Y también como parte de esto, ¿por qué se emitió la alerta Amber 9 horas después del secuestro?
Armando, you're muted.
Thank you, Mayor. Sorry. This question is for either the mayor or Commissioner Outlaw, and it's in regards to the car theft that took place today in Germantown and what happened to the little girl, and why was there an Amber Alert issued 9 hours later after the fact?
I don't have details. Commissioner, do you have anything?
Yeah, Commissioner Nash?
Yeah, if I may speak on that, Commissioner, or I can speak on that. There was a delay on the Amber Alert. There was some confusion about some of the circumstances and some of the facts. We are continuing to look into why the extensive delay that did occur. It appears at this point it likely should have gone out earlier, but I can tell you this, regardless of the Amber Alert that might have gone out as late as early as 11 or 12 o'clock midnight, there was continuous communication being relayed on our police radio to all the officers on the street. There was information that was sent out to all the officers about the vehicle that we were looking for. So there was no delay from the police response. As the vehicle was located on the street, at this point, it's looking like it may have been there in a place that was not easily viewable to the public eye. We don't think that the Amber Alert necessarily would have made a significant difference. But we were out there looking for that car throughout the entire night. Unfortunately, it was found shortly after 8 o'clock.
La respuesta viene de Commissioner Nash y nos dice que están ingresando más detalles en estos momentos, pero que hay el interés de ver por qué hubo ese retraso. Aparentemente, inicialmente hubo algo de confusión y no teníamos ni las circunstancias ni los hechos relacionados con este evento. Hemos estado, sin embargo, viendo el motivo por el cual se ha dado este retraso significativo y entendemos que debiera haberse dado anteriormente esta alarma. Sin embargo, pudo haberse dado a las 11 de la noche o a las 12 de la medianoche, pero nosotros hemos estado en comunicación por radio con todos nuestros oficiales con la información respecto al vehículo que se estaba buscando. Entonces, no ha habido una demora en cuanto a la actividad policial y la respuesta que hemos dado para ello. Se ubicó el vehículo, que no estaba en un lugar fácilmente de verse, en base justamente a esta comunicación a los oficiales. Y la alerta ámbar no hubiera hecho realmente gran diferencia. Se ubicó el carro, esto de las 8, y se va a proceder con esta investigación, tanto con el evento como con la respuesta de la alerta ámbar. Gracias.
Y un follow-up a esa pregunta es cómo se encuentra la niña en este momento y cuánto tiempo si el ladrón abandonó el carro inmediatamente después de robarlo.
This is a follow-up question to the same topic. What is the condition of the little girl at this time, and how much time elapsed in the theft and then the abandoning of the car?
So we are still investigating. The young girl's condition, I've heard, is good. She was taken to the hospital just for precautionary measures to ensure that she's fine. All appearances are she was not harmed during the course of this incident. The amount of time from the time that the vehicle was taken until the vehicle was recovered was approximately 11 hours.
Estamos continuando con la investigación, como dijimos anteriormente. Entendemos que la muchachita se encuentra en una buena situación de salud, está hospitalizada y esto fue justamente como una medida de precaución, pero está bien, es lo que estamos escuchando. En cuanto a lo que sucedió, ella no quedó lesionada ni herida por esta experiencia. Sin embargo, se la llevó, se dice, al hospital. El vehículo se recobró unas 11 horas después que se tomó. Esta investigación y este proceso continúa, obviamente, y les mantendremos informados.
Armando, después una última pregunta sobre otro caso, ¿lo puedo hacer o estoy limitada a estas dos?
Can we have a question about another case?
Yeah, Ima, we're limiting to 2 questions for the first round, so if we have additional time later, I'll go back on.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yep, thank you. With that, we'll now go to Annie McCormick of 6ABC.
Hello, this question is either for the mayor or for Erica. When you're talking about the gun violence program, or the grant programs rather, the 31, Mayor, you said bold and different and a response to the urgency. And Erica, you said at least in one of them that there are resources that can interrupt in real time interrupt gun violence rather in real time. So I'm wondering, what is obviously the ideal time frame for these to work is immediate, but what is your realistic goal to actually see an impact with these 31 programs and affecting gun violence in the city?
Erica?
Sure. I think the immediate goal is participation rates. We know that when those who are the most vulnerable to gun violence are engaged in positive activities, you see a reduction. So our first indicators are increased participation rates in the programs, which means the kids or young adults or those who are most vulnerable are not kind of in the streets being kind of doing kind of nefarious activities or could be victims to nefarious activities. So that's our first indicator of success is the upward participation rates.
Do you have like a time frame or a goal of a time frame in your discussions when you've been planning these and putting them together, like between weeks, months, a year?
It varies. So it's between weeks and months. It's not a year. This is kind of money has been distributed as of today to some of the organizations we've initially chosen kind of in our first round. And so money is going out today. So we hope to see within short order, within the next few weeks, leading through the beginning of the year, an expansion of participation rates of the programs that we are funding as they are getting funds in the door.
Okay. And my next question is for the commissioner. Commissioner, I'm going to give you a choice of two because I know we're not supposed to ask certain questions now, but I have to ask. It's the biggest city in America. Rumors that you're on the short list. You can answer that now or later if you want. And if you don't want to, my question for you is in regards to the district attorney's statements earlier this week saying that we're not at a gun crisis. Wondering if any of that is undermining all of the work that the police department is trying to do in an effort to solve the gun violence program.
I answer your first question. I think, it's a rumor that's just out there and it's wild and it's out of control. I'm not resigning today at 3:00. I appreciate the honorable mentions and it's quite flattering, quite frankly. But I will tell you, I am still continue to focus on my work here. And, obviously, if I had information to share, I would share it. But I'll leave it at that. Their process is their process. And for any additional information, I think folks need to reach out to the folks there in New York.
Do you want to respond to the second question if we have time about district attorneys?
I think the mayor should answer that. But in addition to, what the mayor has to say, I think we are all at a time, regardless, I don't know specifically what was said. Obviously, I've heard commentary about what was said, but we are working. It's been a very difficult and challenging time for law enforcement. And as stated in our presser that we did when we approached, the day before Thanksgiving, I think if nothing else was made clear, was that we all have to work together and we have to be in alignment. We have been doing everything, we being the police department, have been doing everything that we can with the resources that we have to make not only put a dent in what we're seeing, but to make a difference in other ways by incorporating alternative strategies to policing, trying to raise, the benchmark as to recognizing that we have to police in different ways. So I would say any type of commentary, regardless of whom it's from, any type of commentary or actions that undermine our ability to be successful obviously is a hindrance. But my hope is that moving forward that we can all be aligned and working on the same page.
Thank you.
Thanks, Annie. We'll now go to Matt Pillow, CBS 3.
Hi, good afternoon. This question I think is for Nash. If you could explain if police know anything about the suspect involving that missing child who was found?
Well, we're still early in the investigation because the vehicle was recovered at a little after 8:00 this morning. So what we're going to be doing is going through surveillance video. We're going to process the vehicle and see if we can obtain an identification through forensic evidence. But right now, I can tell you we don't have any clear direction on who's responsible for it. But I am confident our investigators are going to work as hard as they possibly can to identify who took the vehicle and with the child inside of it.
Okay. And do you know if security video captured the suspect outside the pizza shop or by that old Checkers? If any, captured him actually going into the vehicle?
So it's my understanding that there may be some security video from some of the locations. I don't know if we got it from the actual incident at the pizza shop, but we're going back and retracing all the steps that we think to locate the directions of travel. There is a fair amount of video, surveillance video, that's believed to be in the area of where the child was located. So I think we'll come up with some video, but right now I don't have indication that it's anything that's going to be able to provide an identification.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. We'll now go to Kristen Johansson of KYW.
Hello. I think this first question may be for the commissioner, but I've noticed that, I guess, and we've talked about it before, but there's been about I think you brought up maybe 4 16 or 17-year-olds that were arrested recently for homicides. I did talk to a mother the other day who said that her son ended up dying and was shot and killed, but also her son was involved in a lot of the violence that was in the neighborhood. And she said that she doesn't blame anybody at all, but she just said that she did absolutely everything she could think of as far as trying to control him, is what she said, to keep him off the streets. And there's really nothing she could do. So I just wanted to see if you could, if there's something like if parents can call police and say, my kid is involved in this thing, I don't know what to do. Is there any avenue that they can take to be able to get their kid out of that kind of crisis mode or violence?
I appreciate that question. And I've also, spoken with parents, and as a parent, there's nothing worse than feeling helpless, feeling that there's nothing that you can do to either help or, get a kid to listen regarding, what it is. It looks like, Erica, you may want to chime in, but I can say from the police standpoint, a parent can always use our tip line. And, again, that number is 215-686-TIPS. If they have information that they would like to share. We also put that out there when, we say, hey, be nosy. If you know what's going on social media, or if you know your child's hiding a gun in their room or under a couch, or if you want to turn it in or whatever it is, we are definitely available for that. It's a monitored line. We follow up on those. And I think there's, that's a safe way to do that, to get the ball rolling. So the onus doesn't necessarily appear as though it's a mother bringing in their own son. It could be, we're working off of information, and now you can put the onus on the police department and following up on leads.
Sure. And I will just add that our Department of Human Services, if parents don't want to kind of engage with law enforcement, our Department of Intention Prevention, Department of Human Services has intensive prevention program, which is really about kind of putting older youth in particular into positive programming that is not kind of court mandated. It's really about engaging young people in positive activities. We'll be sure to get information out about those programs that are happening across the city, specifically for those parents whose children who are at a crossroads and know that they may be getting into the wrong kind of type of trouble.
And my second question is for Nash. The Samir Jefferson, I know you guys have the two guys. You guys are looking for the other two guys. Do you have any indication yet about the motive here, about why 20-year-olds would seek a 14-year-old? And
Kristen, motive is always a challenging issue. Everybody wants to know motive. What I can say is it's not clear right now, so I can't give you a definitive answer but I wouldn't necessarily at this point. It was not a robbery, and it was not domestic, which are driving some of our shootings. The commissioner oftentimes speaks about social media beefs, we call it. We've heard some rumblings of that, but I got to be honest, at this point, I still don't have it. And as I said, when we spoke about this out at the hospital where Officer Carey was shot, and we have some good direction on that one, I will say. That's the off-duty officer that was shot last week. I can tell you that it is just the kind of a thing where unless one of the individuals who is involved in pulling the trigger tells us, there's a strong likelihood we may never know for sure. Because I can't think of any reason why why multiple people would be involved in gunning down an unarmed and seemingly innocent young man. So I don't have an answer for you. I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you both.
Thanks, Kristen. We have about 15 minutes left. Hard stop just after 2, and 6 other reporters that need to ask questions. So we might not get to everyone, but I do want to let everyone know that you can always follow up with press@phila.gov if we don't get to you. With that, next we'll go to Anna Orso at the Philadelphia Inquirer.
Thanks, everyone. Mayor Kenny, District Attorney Krasner's comments earlier this week saying that we are not in a crime crisis drew some criticism. What did you make of his comments? And do you think the city is experiencing a crisis of crime right now?
Well, we certainly are in a gun crisis situation, no doubt about it. And comments between former elected officials and current elected officials that don't involve me, don't involve me. I will say to you and ask the direct question, is there a gun crisis in this city? Absolutely. 520 plus lives will ensure that that's the case. And we're continuing to do what we have to do to get the guns off the street, to continue to try to figure out how we go to Harrisburg and get some assistance, both from legislative assistance and some federal assistance, which we see we're getting now with the FBI helping us with some of these fugitives, getting these people off the street and in jail. But I don't agree that we're not. I agree that we're in a gun crisis. And I'm not going to get involved in back and forth between a former mayor and the DA.
Okay, and my other question is for Commissioner Outlaw. Commissioner, have you interviewed for the NYPD job?
As I shared with you, any questions about the NYPD job needs to be referred to them. It's their process, and out of respect for their process, I don't have anything further to say on that.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Anna. We're now going to go to Saj Purple Blackwell, Community Radio.
Peace and greetings, everyone. My first question is for Mayor Kinney. Speaking of statements at the last press conference on the 11th, you made a statement in regards to not really getting a lot of questions or press in regards to the murders that are currently happening when we were at 300. Did you want to maybe either restate that or clarify what you actually meant by that statement that no one addressed you about the murders when we were at the 300 number?
No, I said below 300. When we hit 300, people started asking more questions about it. And as we went higher, they asked more questions. But I didn't get the level of questions that we get when we were under 300. My point is that one person killed is one person too many. And I think often we get involved in these numbers games that doesn't really help the situation. So yeah, there's nothing I need to amend.
Okay, thank you very much. And then my second question is for one of the commissioners or officers on the line. In regards to this new murder of activist and block captain Michael Muhammad, who is actually very active in trying to stop gun violence. He was murdered the other day. Do we have any information on motive or, any suspects or any information at all? Because it doesn't seem like it's getting enough coverage. And was he targeted because he is an activist against gun violence?
Yeah, Ms. Blackwell, that homicide that you're referencing is one of the homicides with an arrest that I spoke to. We have him in our system. I think you're talking about Mr. Michael Muhammad from the area of 10th and Brown. And that arrest was done. It was just made in the last week. Having covered so many of them, I'm trying to make sure I get the right one. But I can tell you we did make an arrest. And I can follow up with you on the particulars of the individual specifically arrested for that job, for that incident, okay?
Okay, thank you very much.
Oh, and by the way, I can tell you this also, as far as a motive, I know there was a question, I'm sorry, the arrest for, that was for 10,000 Brown Street. The incident happened on November the 27th, right? That's the incident you're talking about? Is that correct?
It seemed like this murder just happened the other day. Michael Muhammad, he's a block captain and an activist.
Yeah.
Hey, excuse me, y'all. Ms. Purple, the homicide that Deputy Commissioner Nash is referencing is the same one that you're asking about.
Thank you.
Yeah, as I indicated, Cayenne, Quyan Robinson. He's a 20-year-old male. He was arrested just 2 days ago for that homicide. And as far as the motive for him being shot, I can tell you that a vehicle drove down the street, fired shots, and there were individuals that were in the vicinity of where we listed him as Mr. Muhammad was, and there was a return fire. And he was shot during that interaction. And an arrest has been made for the person who we believe is responsible for shooting him.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. And if anybody wants to answer real quick, is there any follow-up for the gentleman who shot Sam Collington and he was actually released after he was shot?
Wait, you're talking about the Temple student?
Yeah, Latif Williams, he was released after he was arrested, excuse me?
You're talking about he was released prior to the incident involving the Temple student, that he had been previously arrested back in August. Is that what you're referencing, Ms. Blackwell?
Well, recently they said that he turned himself in, that he was not arrested, that he turned himself in, and
That's
that
correct.
he was then released.
No, that's false information. He's in custody. I don't know where you're getting information. Anyone charged with murder is going to be held without bond. So he's in custody.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Saj. We'll now go to Lauren Winfrey of NBC 10.
Hi, this question, I'd like it answered in English and in Spanish if possible, and just trying to get a better idea of what is the latest on the robberies, specifically those targeting Hispanic restaurants.
You want to have the Spanish interpretation on that question before I tackle that? I don't know.
Sure.
Armando, are you still on the? I think he might have. No.
Oh, okay. If he's not there, that's fine.
Yeah, I know Armando had to leave a little bit earlier, is from my understanding. Look, I can tell you that we have identified you're talking about the robberies in our 25th district in North Philadelphia?
Yes.
Yeah, we do recognize that we have a pattern. We have made an arrest of one individual for one of the robberies that occurred on the 4500 block of D Street. We suspect that individual is likely responsible for additional robberies. We are working very hard in order to get enough to get a warrant for his arrest for the other robberies. And we have also identified a couple of other suspects, but we don't have enough to arrest them right now. So while we recognize there is a pattern of robberies in that area, we are making progress on the investigation.
Okay. And my second question is, when is the last time the city has seen a homicide rate this high?
Okay, so if you're asking the question about the number of people that have been murdered in a year, it's my understanding that this is as high as it's been. So the answer is the rate. This is it.
Oh, okay, and when was it? Is there a year that it was close to this?
I believe
it was 1990. I think.
Yeah, I think in 1990 we had 500.
Okay, thank you.
People murdered.
Thanks, Lauren. We'll now go to Jeff Cole of Fox 29.
Hello, folks. I'm sorry. Again, to Commissioner Outlaw. Commissioner, if you are offered the job to run the New York City Police Department, you are going to take that job, correct?
I'm not going to comment on hypothetics, Jeff.
Is it a job you'd want? Commissioner, obviously, you're a finalist, says the New York Post.
That's what the media says.
Well,
it's what's being reported. Honestly, if I had something to share with you, I promise you I would. I don't have anything to share with the public right now.
Jeff, the commissioner's answered your question. So you want to ask your second question?
I have another one. One more on Krasner, if I could, Commissioner. The district attorney said we do not have a violence crisis. You've said anything that hinders our efforts to fight violence is not good. But speak to that. You would think that we have a problem with violence in the city of Philadelphia in 2021, correct?
Absolutely. We absolutely have an issue with violent crime. With our non-fatal shootings, with our homicides, not just in 2021, but since I've been here, and I regularly report out that these numbers have been increasing since 2015. So absolutely, we have a problem there. And again, I didn't witness or hear what it is that was said. I am responding to what you all are saying that he said, but I can, in response to the question you just asked me, absolutely, we have a gun violence crisis.
And that doesn't help your efforts to combat violence, in your view?
Oh, absolutely not. I mean, if that's what was said, that's what was said. And no, it does not, because I think we all have to have a shared understanding of the problem that we're addressing.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. And we have time for one more question and one more reporter. So Mike D'Onofrio from Axios.
I won't waste everybody's time. My questions have been answered. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Mike. And with that concludes today's briefing. Thanks everyone for joining, and take care.